Hi everyone, it's Haley here. Welcome. This is the last of our webinar series for the fall before the holidays. The topic is strategic sourcing. I have Nicole here for me and she's going to expand on that a little bit more, but just a couple housekeeping items. Like before, we are recording this webinar and it will be made available on the OMX site. As I've done with all of the past three, I will send a follow-up email so that you can pass around the link to other people in your organization that weren't able to attend today. Lastly, if you have any questions, you can type them in at any time and I will be keeping track. If it is directed to one of our particular panelists, Jennifer Lewis, you can put their name at the beginning and I will direct the question towards the appropriate person. Other than that, not much from me. I will pass over to Nicole and then we'll get started.
Well, thank you so much, Haley. This is pretty exciting that this medium has been so successful for us the last 3 times. We keep getting more and more attendees, so it's pretty awesome. I'd have to say, though, it's definitely winter here in Toronto today, so I'd say this is the first of our winter series. It's been 5 years since we started OMX, and when we first got started, we were so heavily focused. I mean, OMX stands for Offset Market Exchange. We're so heavily focused on offsets specifically and how they relate in the defense market only. So the platform was initially designed by large defense contractors and designed specifically for that legal policy that requires them to invest in local economies because of their legal obligations of the countries that they sell to. So we were really focused on the defense sector, but as we started to grow and expand and start to work with organizations like the Canadian Council of Aboriginal Business, and we started to get to know EDC a little bit more, we started to really think about it in a much wider lens to say, okay, there's nothing different between what defense offsets are and what general sourcing is in energy sector, automotive sector, infrastructure sectors, where we're starting to see this trend of sourcing professionals thinking about sourcing in a more strategic way, thinking about it at sort of the top level of the organization. So what is the organization's long-term goals from an R&D perspective, from a business development perspective? What major programs are large corporations trying to win and achieve, and where are they trying to get the rights to go forward on new projects, etc. So, where do they need to engage local stakeholders, especially in the energy and mining sectors, particularly when it comes to local Aboriginals or SMEs. So starting to think about sourcing in a much wider lens. And then it really hit the nail on the head when we had various meetings with the federal government. We've been doing a pilot project with them to use our platform to track socioeconomic benefits from procurements, and it really hit home when they said, we want to understand all procurements and what impacts do they have from a socioeconomic benefit, and what benefits come to Canada because of all procurements. And those benefits are not just SMEs, but how do we help women entrepreneurs? How do we help the clean tech movement? How do we help small businesses and Aboriginals and other social targets that the government has through their procurement? So it's basically having a win-win situation and not just focusing on best price all the time. So it's a really interesting topic. I think we're seeing a lot more on the topic. Even the UN Millennium Goals talk about strategic sourcing and talk about how large corporations, when they come into a country, not only can they achieve their direct objectives, which is delivering the product for the cheapest price, but also their long-term partnership with the country and trying to achieve some of these social benefits that also come from procurement. So very interesting topic for us, and we're going to hear more about it in Canada anyways, I think, under this new deliverology mandate and umbrella. One of our big objectives for 2017 is to work closer with organizations like EDC, who's working with a whole bunch of global companies around the world. They're providing financing, and those companies are sourcing. They're trying to encourage more sourcing locally in Canada, and organizations like Schlumberger on their energy plans and energy sourcing. So this is really exciting for us to have these 2 guests here today. Have to thank them for being here. So I'm signing off. I'll pass it back over to Haley, but that's all I wanted to say about the thinking about why we chose this topic.
Thank you so much, Nicole. So that covered the OMX portion of it. We're going to go right into the EDC portion. So Jennifer is here today speaking on behalf. Her career began in business development at ADC and has spanned over a decade. She has worked with hundreds of Canadian SMEs, helping them to go to new markets, grow their business, and succeed. Currently focused on creating more trade opportunities for Canadians in the automotive and technology sectors, she brings the supply and demand together. She prides herself on her ability to speak to her new clients, whether it be explaining international trade finance to a startup or emerging technology to a banker. So with that being said, Jennifer, the floor is all yours. I'm going to pass the mouse over to you now.
All right, thanks, Haley. So let me see, we'll get started. I'm not sure I've got the control.
Yep, it's all you now.
That's it.
If it's not working, I'll just switch to the next one for you.
Yeah, if you just want to, I'll just say next slide then. We'll be
no problem.
So the presentation I put together for today is all about something that's of growing importance for EDC, and it's to help Canadian exporters make more connections. And what's really interesting is when you start to look at this in the context of dealing with or working with procurement groups, making the connection becomes a little bit different and a little bit more complex, because I think you've added a couple layers of customer really to the world that you're looking at. So where do we begin? If you can go to next slide. Haley, I'm still seeing just the OMX EDC slide and Schlumberger slide. I'm not sure if they're actually advancing. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So where do we start? This is a quote that we put in our presentations that usually we're directing at our audience. So you've got to be, to start, you've got to be brutally honest and take an analysis of your own business. But I'm leaving this one in here as well to sort of set up where I'm coming from, because this is something that EDC, we've recently done that ourselves. We are, if you haven't heard of EDC, it's Export Development Canada. We're Canada's Crown Corporation, and we are mandated to help Canadians grow their business globally. And whenever I meet somebody, if I'm at an event, I always explain EDC to the fullest extent, because I can never assume that somebody knows who we are. And so when we took a brutally honest look at us, as a Crown Corporation, we realized if we really want to be helping Canadians do more abroad, we've got to be more relevant to all Canadian exporters. So we've been taking a look at new programs, new opportunities that we can offer. And one of the things we're taking a look at now that Nicole sort of alluded to is we've grown a portfolio of business of, there's probably about 300 multinationals that we do financing with. And the reason why a Crown Corporation of the Canadian government would lend these people money is so that we can work with them to increase the amount of Canadian procurement that they do. So when it comes to procurement and strategic procurement, I'm a big giant observer of the industry. So I'm never the one who's actually procuring services. I don't often ever have to bid on contracts, but we're always looking for these procurement opportunities with our clients and figuring out how we can introduce new Canadians into their supply chain. And so as we move forward, the one thing I find is really important for the companies I work with, that they have a really solid understanding. If you're going to take that brutally honest look at your own company, what makes you competitive? And it's not just why do your customers buy from you, but it's why do they keep buying from you? And I think if you can get that down to a really tight, succinct message, it just helps you when you're having to work with different levels of procurement within an organization to keep it really crisp and concise what it is that you guys are going to be offering to them of value. So if you can go to the next slide. I almost wish I could have had this as the first slide, because ultimately, who are you selling to? It's all about your customer. I was recently at a conference where Sir Terry Matthews was doing a presentation, and he's an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur from Ottawa. He's actually from Canada, which is also where I'm from. No relation, or no, I didn't get any success from him or anything, but he has, to his name, he has started 300 startups, and he said no bankruptcies. And so if you are at all familiar or in the telecom industry, you may have heard of Sir Terry Matthews. He started Mitel, Newbridge, a number of bigger companies. But one of his, I don't know, like his model, his reason for doing what he does is he always says, do what your customer loves and what they'll pay for. And so he has an accelerator incubator program that he runs, and he's always looking, when he chooses the companies to invest in or chooses a company to start up, he's looking for, is there a customer there who needs what I'm going to be making, and are they willing to pay for it? And I always find that the pay for it part is that interesting afterthought, but it's so important when you're thinking in terms of procurement, because it's not just what the company wants. The sort of strategic vision of a company might be what they love, but when it comes down to what they're going to pay for, that's all about the procurement. They've got it down to the requirements, the list of approved suppliers, and you can offer the most amazing product in the entire world, but if you're not in the right position for procurement to do work with you, you're not going to get paid. One example we had seen a couple of years ago, we did some work with a big telecom equipment manufacturer and had several meetings with their procurement group, looking to find ways or looking to see what types of new technology we could introduce them to help with their procurement. And the way they were structured, we realized once it got down to procurement, they had their list of suppliers that were approved for use. They had their list of parts that they were supposed to be procuring and the range of price that they were working within. But if we actually wanted to influence or increase the amount of trade that our customers were getting, we're going to have to go to a completely different level of engagement and start working with the solution architects and the system architects so that new Canadian suppliers can get embedded into the solution. And so I think this is where it becomes really important as a supplier to understand and have that elevator pitch. So what's your core value that you can get out quickly? Because as you start to do business globally, it's not just the procurement group you're going to have to be selling yourself to. If you can catch the ear of somebody in engineering or design or somewhere else in the company, if you can get it out quickly what it is that you do that is so much better than everybody else, then it just helps advance the relationship that you've got with that customer. So that value proposition, I think, is really important. Perfect timing, Haley. Nope, this is great, selling directly. So again, when we're talking about our customer, to me there's a difference in when you're selling, if you are selling to consumers versus when you're selling to another organization through their procurement group. But what you've got to keep in mind is that if you are supplying parts or components into another, a larger organization's supply chain, you've also got to be selling to their end user. So this is where the complexity, I think, really starts to show itself, because you've got to now look at what their customer is going to be valuing. You've got to know what procurement is going to be looking for, and then you've also got to be thinking about what the overall corporate strategy is of the company. And I think if you can look at from things like annual reports or industry knowledge that you may have, you get a sense of what corporate strategy is. That's going to lead you towards the future opportunities. But understanding the actual strategy within the procurement department is going to help you with winning the RFPs and winning the bids today. I think a good example of this is in the auto sector. Recently, Volkswagen has announced that their new corporate strategy is they're pivoting a little bit. They're going to be focusing on, I think it's by 2020, having a complete electric vehicle lineup. So if you are a supplier in the auto sector, you're probably going to be looking at electric vehicle technology as being something of high importance. However, today, Volkswagen's procurement strategy does not involve sourcing things for electric vehicles. They're not there yet. So you've got to know that's where it's headed, but you still have to understand what their current procurement requirements are so that you can keep money coming in. So if we go to next slide. So if you've got, if you can get an understanding of what the corporate strategy is and what procurement is looking for, to really, I think, bring that all together and get the most value from the relationship with your customer, you've got to go beyond just being the supplier of a single contract. You want to start to build more of a strategic alliance with your customer, and to do that, you're going to try and get work with them so that you can start to become the sole supplier or the known, I guess, expert to supply a larger solution and not just a part. And things you can think about doing so you can advance your relationship is start to think about how can you get feedback from your customer? How can you guys work together to improve, continuously improve the products that you're supplying to them or the services that you're supplying to them? How can you set up a problem resolution system so that you can get their feedback continuously? And then that makes you more of a partner to them, a valuable supplier that's going to have a competitive edge over somebody new coming in, because you have an embedded system to get their feedback, and it's not just a delivery of units on the due date. So if we go to the next slide. So from my perspective, we work with multinationals around the world, and we work with companies in pretty much every traditional industry vertical. And some of the things that I thought I'd just share some of the examples of things that we're seeing right now, or where we see some trends, what's working, what's not working. For sure, I would have to say when companies that we're working with, one of the things they look for EDC to provide is that the innovative, the new solutions that are out there. And if you just think about the globe, if I'm dealing with automaker in Europe and they want to know what's the emerging technology for electric vehicles or connected cars, they want to know what's coming out of Canada. They just don't have the reach to know what all the startups are doing and what new trends there are happening. So if you can find ways to really promote an innovative solution, that can be really valuable. Companies are always looking to improve the user experience of their products. Cost reduction is always key, so these are some things that can help your product stand out. Another big one is it's timing and it's the relationship itself. Like with the electric vehicle example for Volkswagen, there's going to be the right time to pitch an innovative electrification solution, and then there's going to be a time where they're just not ready to hear it yet. So a big part is it's trying to figure out what the company is going to what they're going to be looking for. Another one we find that is really, I guess, a big trend for sure in automotive, but it is happening in other industries as well, is you've got to, as you build that sort of strategic alliance or a stronger relationship with your customers, often being closer to the customer can be really helpful. So a lot of, like in the auto sector, you see manufacturing moving to Mexico because that's where a lot of the cars are being made now. So localization is quite important. So if we go to the next slide. So if we look at your customers and how you build partnerships, some of what EDC does to, again, I guess some of the options or of things that are available to you are things like using online platforms for creating profiles and looking for business opportunities, trade shows, missions, even introductions. So EDC will offer introductions into other customers that we have. And so that's sort of, I guess, where we come from and how we participate in this industry. So if we can go to the next slide. So one of our, this is probably the biggest, I don't know, biggest tool, biggest thing that we have of relevance is there are a lot of online platforms available to help you promote your company. So things like LinkedIn, I've noticed not all companies will have a LinkedIn profile, but it can be a really great source of information. OMX is obviously a great solution for creating a profile, finding opportunities, being able to bid on contracts. We're starting to develop a database ourselves so that it's not a public access one, but it's a tool that our people use internally. And the more I get out in the market and talk about this kind of stuff, you realize a lot of the government departments are trying to do more leveraging online tools and using their resources to create opportunities for Canadians to do more work abroad. So if you can go to the next slide. So in-person introductions at trade shows, this is probably something maybe you guys are more familiar with, and it's not just something that EDC does, but this is something that Government of Canada for a while has taken this sort of Team Canada approach at trade shows. And so the quote we've got here is from Quick Silk again, and it's connecting with potential end users and partners and distributors all in one spot. And if you team up with a Team Canada type mission to one of the trade shows, they'll help they'll give you a bigger presence at the trade show. They can usually work in some meeting spaces, set up B2B programs. So that's really, it can be a good way of maximizing the value you get out of your travel dollars. So if you're going to be engaging, trying to target a new market or a new industry, you've got a new product that you're launching, to get out there and do the BD can be so expensive, but if you leverage some of the programming that is available from the government, it can just help so that you get more connections out of the travel that you are doing. One thing I find with trade shows, in my experience in working with them, to get the most out of them by the time you get to the trade show, it can be a great opportunity for you to take an existing relationship and meet some new contacts. Maybe procurement is decentralized, so maybe you've got a really good relationship with the procurement group in North America, but you're looking to do more with their European group. So you could try and get connections with their European procurement. Or maybe you're looking at taking somebody who you've had an initial introduction with, you've had some back and forth emails, and now's your chance to get a face-to-face. Trade shows, I think you get the most out of it if it's advancing a relationship rather than starting a relationship, because everybody, it's almost like drinking from a fire hose. There's so much going on that it's hard sometimes to stand out. So if we go to the next slide. It's just a quick case study that we have. There's a company from Edmonton called CatchCan that we've done some work with to help them with introductions. So they're part of the oil and gas industry. They specialize, they have products to help with health and safety of oil rig workers, which is generally something we hear quite a bit in that industry, is looking for solutions to improve health and safety. Their solution also helps minimize pollution and reduce operating costs. So they've really hit on some of the key trends that big M&Es in this space are looking for. One of their challenges was that they wanted to grow internationally, but to do that they needed opportunities to get in with the right contacts. And so in working with EDC, they were able to get some contacts, which ended up building relationships with three new North American customers. So if you can go to the next slide. So we were able to help them open up new doors in the US. I should maybe also mention these are brand new slides and we're already out of date because while we have this quote from David Nygaard, he now works for EDC. So I guess we must have done okay, and now he works on my team so that he can help other people in the oil and gas industry make some new connections. You can go to the next slide. So the third type of engagement or market development initiative could be through in-person introductions as part of a mission. Missions are a really good way. If you do a mission abroad, so you join a group of Canadians and you get to travel abroad to a new market that you might be considering and get some meeting time with a supplier that you're looking at working with or a buyer that you're looking to work with, these can be a really good opportunity to take a look at the other participants on the mission, because that can help you network to maybe find complementary products, things that you could bundle together to make a broader solution that you're bidding. And then look at who is on the agenda, who you're going to be meeting with, and where you're going to be meeting with them. Because if you do an outbound mission, it can be a key opportunity to actually get in the market and take a look at the plants, factories, offices, all the different spaces that your customer has. And usually you're able to get a much longer meeting time with them. You'll also often get presentations from their leadership at the potential customers, and the presentations usually give you some really good insights into what they're looking for. The missions tend to get you a little bit better connected with the right people, versus a trade show where you may end up talking to the people who happen to have attended, where the missions are a little bit more tailored. The opposite of the outbound mission would be an inbound mission, and these can be an amazing opportunity for you to showcase your facilities. A lot of the time when we do an inbound mission, this tends to be the window where you've got somebody looking to bring new suppliers into their procurement function, or into the list of approved suppliers, or bring somebody in for a new, maybe there's an RFP coming out. And if you can participate in one of these missions, it usually gives you a chance to have a much longer meeting. They come to your site and they can see your offices, your space, meet with employees. It gives you a little bit more opportunity to engage with them. So next slide. And then the last thing, which is I guess more of an EDC focused thing, but we can also do introductions into our customers. And so we have the roughly 300 international customers that we work with, and we can do email introductions. We can, if we know of opportunities, procurement opportunities that are coming up, we can share those. And then we also have Canadian companies that we work with, and some of them are the larger, what we sort of consider larger, more strategic customers. And so it could be a good opportunity if you're a smaller organization that's maybe looking to tackle a new market. Maybe you've got experience in North America and really want to go into Asia. Maybe your key to getting into Asia is to try partnering or working with a larger company in Canada who's already present in that market. So next slide. So our research in general shows that companies with operations abroad tend to be more innovative and productive and competitive than the companies that try to do all their operations from home. And this is something we see all the time when I'm getting requests for new suppliers from the different companies we work with. There's almost, I would say at least half of the time, the request has some sort of geographical component. They need to be in Mexico, or we need them to be in Asia. We need them to be in Europe. So I think it just shows the customers are often will be looking to have their suppliers close by, and our research shows that going to where your customers are, it helps ensure that you are innovative and productive, and that you have that you're more competitive. Setting up operations overseas can be challenging. There's certainly new costs and risks involved, but there are government programs that are available to help with that. So we'll just do, if you can go to the next slide, I've got a quick case study. Again, company is Endurance Wind Power, so they do wind turbines. They started in Vancouver, but immediately found that the best opportunity for them was in Europe. And a lot of that was because of the way the taxation and tariffs worked on energy production that was clean energy. And so we were working with them to help finance it might have actually been this wind turbine, but to help finance some of their initial projects so that they could get started overseas. So if you can go to the next slide. So the quote from Endurance is, "To be competitive in wind, you need to be global." And when we started out, oceans lay between us and our customers, and we bridged that gap. So that's a company that EDC has been working with for about 8 years now, I guess. They started off with just about 10 employees, and now they're up to 150. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So help with your overseas operations. So if you do decide you want to try and be closer to your customers and that you're looking to go overseas, there are challenges, but EDC is here to help with those challenges. We have financing programs, which is something that Endurance had leveraged to help pay for the growth. We have insurance and risk management programs that can help offset some of the risks that you'll be taking on. And we also have information and a network of representatives across the world, so that if you're traveling to new markets or you're looking for information on customers or markets, we can help with that as well. Next slide. So a little bit more about us. We're in Ottawa, headquartered in Ottawa, but we do have offices and representatives across Canada, and then we have representation in the Canadian embassies in, I think we're up to about 25 countries across the world. But with what we do, our mandate is to create capacity for Canadians to do more trade, and so we know that the exports, Canada's exports, have a positive impact on Canada's GDP. So ultimately, with what we do, we're here to impact Canada's economy. So if you can go to the next slide. So last year, our impact was that we facilitated $100 billion in business, which I find that's a stat that usually is surprising for some people, since you may not have heard of EDC. But we contributed $66 million to the GDP, and that supported over 530,000 jobs across Canada. Next slide. So through those different steps that I was talking about, the different types of engagement you can do to grow abroad, EDC is just part of a bigger ecosystem of services that are out there to help companies grow their business. So EDC, we have our market knowledge, the financing, and the insurance, but there's also the Trade Commissioner Services, which is Global Affairs operates that, and they are in all the embassies and consulates across the world. There's the Business Development Bank of Canada, BDC, which has great programs for companies that are just starting up. And then there's also CCC, which is another Crown corporation that can help with negotiating and bidding contracts when you're working with other countries' governments. And so, next slide. So once you've got those new customers and you're working on developing your procurement in new markets, we're always here to help companies continue their business and then to continue to grow their business. So our solutions are all designed, the whole reason we're here is to help Canadians do more abroad. And so last slide. So if you are thinking you guys are ready to go into a new market, you're ready to tackle a bigger project than you've ever done before, or you're looking to just start to scope out what options are available, EDC is here to help with that. And that's what I've got. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Next, we're going to hear from Lewis from Schlumberger. He's been a procurement specialist since 2008 with Schlumberger. Now he's the procurement and sourcing manager there. We really like Lewis here at Almax. He's very forward-thinking about online platforms, and he's also very engaged with the Aboriginal community. I'm going to hand it over to Lewis. Just give me a second. I'm going to change the presenter so we can present from your computer.
Okay. Thank you very much, Haley. And thank you, Jennifer. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Again, thank you very much for including me. It's a pleasure to be on the call. As Haley said, I've been working with OMX recently, specifically on the Aboriginal engagement piece. With the oil and gas industry, there has been more focus on bringing spend not only to Aboriginal own businesses, run businesses, but also to Canada. You know, such such issues as foreign exchange, the current state, the cost of logistics, it makes sense to do business in our back door. So my background, as Haley said, I'm with Schlumberger, have been for the past 8 years. Started off in Red Deer as the South Supply Chain Manager, moved back to Calgary as the Procurement Manager, and I've taken a few positions on since then. Had a brief stint in actually 2 jobs at once. As the North American Supply Chain Quality Manager, was involved in some of the policy creation, issue analysis, things of this nature, as well as the centralization project that we had going on for our procurement organization. Currently, and I think driven by the current market conditions in the oil and gas sector, I'm back in Canada, focused on Canada, and I couldn't be happier, quite frankly. So Schlumberger, for those of you who may not know who we are on the call, we are E&P, we're upstream focused. We've been in business for more than 80 years, here in Canada, in fact. We have over 100,000 people, working for us, representing 140 nationalities. We work in 85 countries, so massive global footprint. Some would say through our recent acquisitions over the past 8 years that there isn't a rig on the face of the planet that doesn't either have our people, our technology, or some facet of Schlumberger on it. So we're pretty big. So again, the focus of today is the value of the supply chain and honing in specifically on category management and strategic sourcing. So giving you guys an insight from more an academic point of view, not so much Schlumberger specific, but how the other side do it. What are we looking at to select suppliers to work with? So I think we'd all agree, regardless our industry, whatever we do, we are all a part of a supply chain. So there's some quotes here that I find quite interesting. So SCM, supply chain management, can be the single greatest unifying factor across all functions. It increases revenue, extends asset life, protects brand reputation, increases productivity, reduces costs, and manages risks. That could be opinion. When you look at some of the actual research that's been done, companies that acknowledge supply chain as a strategic asset achieve 70% higher performance. They're also nearly 50% higher, nearly 50% higher sales growth and are 20% more profitable. And this is coming from a PwC PricewaterhouseCoopers survey done back in 2013. This one, I'm sure we all remember, is a column online that I've read. Shows you what happens when a supply chain doesn't function, unfortunately. So when the news broke this morning of the retail giant's impending closure of its Canadian operations, which was 133 stores, 17,600 job losses, with $5.4 billion in expected losses, and one of the reasons being blamed for the decision was routine empty shelves, a fundamental piece of any successful business, whether it's small or a giant national retail chain, is a well-oiled supply chain. So that kind of drives the importance to heart, why these things are in place and why they need to function. And when supply chain management is a CEO-level agenda item, annual savings improvements, the cost to serve customers are nearly double. So what this says is the adoption has to happen from the top, and it's a trickle-down effect. I mean, everybody needs a supply chain in some way, shape, or form because we're all a part of the supply chain. So category management, the primary objective of category management is to develop a strategy that encompasses the activities needed to define the optimum long-term sourcing position. So category management comes from marketing back in the 1980s, where they used to group products into categories based on how consumers use those products. This helped retailers grow sales by maximizing the synergies and minimizing unproductive competition between their own brands. Right? The how, though, how do we take that jumbled mess on the left and organize it, is through establishing a team as well as a governance structure, gathering data, analyzing the internal and market, identify and quantify the opportunities, as well as more on the strategy side, develop the procurement strategy options, and implement preferred procurement strategies. So this is from a top level all the way down to the lowest level approach. Now, strategic sourcing is the approach that involves examining the entire supply base and working with them to build value, meet customer needs, mitigate risks, and meet the overall goals. Okay? So if you see the process flow map here, essentially what we have to kick off any strategic sourcing activity is a requirement. Somebody has to come to us, or we have to see through our analysis of those categories that there is an opportunity there. When you launch your project, you're looking at your supplier identification, either using the suppliers you know or going out and vetting new suppliers. You're conducting your RFX, whether it's a request for quote, request for information, request for proposal, and then you're going through the steps of the onboarding, technological questions or specific qualifications that need to be vetted into the supplier selection and the contracting. Specific to the strategic sourcing and more so the elements of supplier identification as well as the ongoing control and monitoring, we definitely use this matrix, the Kralik matrix, to understand where our suppliers fit on the map. So your non-critical suppliers, these are repetitive orders, these are low spend, low profitability. How you're typically dealing with these are consolidating. You'll find a bulk of the supply base fits into the non-critical. It makes no sense to deal with 300 people giving you the same product. So the effort is a consolidation as well as a push to a transactional approach. So setting up catalogs, things of this nature, so we can quickly, rapidly push out purchasing. A bottleneck supplier, relatively high risk, low spend. You want to definitely have contracts in place, and over time, try and reduce those bottlenecks. Push them more into the strategic, or you may find they come back down into the non-critical. The leverage, these are high volume, high spend suppliers, but we do have substitutes, right? So how do we deal with the leverage? We want to maximize that market competition. We want to make them work to move up or move back, and we want to make sure that we're adding value or creating value-add programs in this sector. The strategic area, this is one where we have to approach it. These are our partners. It's very high risk. It's a huge risk of switching, extreme switching costs, impacts on revenue if we do switch to something that doesn't meet client specifications or fails. So we want to make this partnership, for lack of a better word, mutually beneficial, right? On the supplier management side, again, you'll see the Kralik matrix on the right-hand side. It carries through, and the reason being is how we manage this supply base differs dependent on the type of supplier that we're dealing with. So the clearest measure of success of the management of the global supplier base is the consistent on-time delivery of defect-free products and services at the most competitive cost. So when we're dealing again with our less impactful, less risk profit base, supplier base, we're not going through the exhaustive steps of having to target those suppliers and create key performance indicators and set up developmental plans and really babysit them and grow with them. We're simply setting them up. We're setting up the catalogs. We're pumping through the purchases, and we do some systematic health checks every once in a while to make sure this still makes sense for us, right? On the other hand, when we're dealing with that higher tier that's strategic into the bottleneck and leverage, we are doing the exhaustive. We are managing that supplier outright throughout these various steps. You'll see at the bottom here, after the developmental plan, there's a section called phase out. This is the decision. Do we have other alternatives? Is the relationship not working, etc.? You see it kicks back into supplier engagement, where we're looking for that next partnership, especially in the strategic. So how does it all fit together? So you can see category management covers the entire thing, right? The category management group, and in Schlumberger specific, it's globally focused. They're the ones who set the plan. Again, as we saw from the previous slide, they're taking that jumble and they're organizing into categories and then defining those subcategories and figuring out the ideal route from the global perspective. They're doing such exercises as cost modeling, management expertise, analyzing and monitoring the existing and new markets. They're developing the strategy to source, as well as the partnership selection, those strategic partnerships that we have to create and secure. The sourcing functionality, they're the ones who source via the plan. So they're taking that plan set by the category management and using it as a guideline, if you will, to get the best options for the operations in the field. So they're doing such things as bidding qualification and sourcing through tenders, etc. They have to make that decision whether it makes sense to make it ourselves or buy outright, and do we need to be doing this in-house? Should we be doing it outside? They're the ones liaising with our operations people at a local level to determine if the strategy at the level above is making sense for the local environment. And then last but not least, the supplier management team. These are the individuals that manage the plan. So if we have a number of suppliers on the call, or supplier representatives on the call, these are the individuals that you would be sitting down with in your locations, going through the audits, going through the contract discussions, going through event investigations, going through strategy to make the strategic alliances and the collaboration more effective for both of us, right? So the whole grouping of the functions is driving down our unit costs through bringing down the purchase price as well as the total landed costs or distribution costs, which impacts our P&L. So the real interesting thing about what's happened with supply chain, at one point in time, it was viewed very much as just cost reduction, and it has changed. There's definitely more strategy that's put to it, more thought that's put to it. But the overall goal is still making that impact on the bottom line. For Schlumberger, I can see how our KPIs, how our objectives over the years have matured, and it's interesting to see where it's going. Albeit cost is always there, but we're geared towards making better connections with our suppliers, making it a more amicable working area, making more strategic partnerships where it makes sense. And especially with those initiatives like local spend, like Aboriginal company spend, it's interesting times because we do have quite a bit of leverage from the global side where these category plans are set. So when we have initiatives at a local level, it's sometimes a bit sticky to go against the norm, but it's definitely interesting. So as a supplier on the call today, how do I stand out? How do I show it? Right? I'd ask a few questions, and obviously I'm not looking for answers, but some things to consider. Does your company benefit from a dedicated professional force who are doing your RFPs, your RFQs? Essentially, do you have a supply chain, either an individual or a team? again, supply chains are created for the size of the business they represent. So do I expect every single company that we deal with to have hundreds of people at their disposal? No, especially in today's economic conditions. But dedication to the supply chain philosophy, as well as the work that's done in the back office, is key. Does your company efficiently purchase and track your financial inventory? So at any given time, are you able to say without a shadow of a doubt, what you're sitting on and how it's being used? Does your company have legally vetted contract templates? Are you securing both your interests and the interests of your potential clients, right? Is your company actually reaping the rewards of the cost reduction efforts that you're putting into place, right? How do you analyze that, right? And can your company produce factual information on request or pump into a system such as OMX that shows your commitment to our corporate well-being, right? So all in all, the 2014 through the 2016 environment, especially in the oil and gas field, has been rocky, to say the least. I think going forward, it will be quite interesting to see what the lay of the land will be. Competitors of ours have dropped off the map. Some of our subcontractors have dropped off the map. So it will be challenging times still for a period of time, but I think it will be a rebirth, if you will, especially in the supply chain area, with the hope of a return of normal activity or somewhat normal activity. So really getting on the ground floor now, it's not bad timing. It's good to implement this stuff when you have the opportunity, when you have the bandwidth or time. But again, it's crystal ball territory, so I can't say for sure. But these are the kind of values companies such as ours we do look at when we're selecting our supply base. And I don't know if there's any questions. I probably have to pass it back to you, Haley.
Sorry, yes, I will take it back over now. 1 second. Oh. Sorry, it's just giving me a little bit of difficulty switching it back to me. If everybody can hear me. So, Louis, there was a question that I wanted to ask you, talking about category management. How does that transfer to the local level? You're talking very global.
Yeah, so again, with the category management, a company of our size, we're typically looking at developing those relationships to leverage, right? To get the best possible price based on the volume that we'll buy. So numerous countries will benefit from the various deals we put into place. So where it gets a bit challenging is obviously at the local level, because Joe's Tire Shop compared to some multinational chain of tires, it's not exactly something that we can pass up based on the savings, because at the end of the day, the customer is also interested in the price that it's costing us, because we extend that price through to them. So it has to be done based on the information provided by the operations, the criticality. So we do rely heavily on that communication with our stakeholders in the field, and that's another key. I mean, you saw with the sourcing, the initiatives, it doesn't start until there is a need, until there is something prompting you, whether you see that in the analysis that you do, or whether operations is coming to you to push for change or push for something new. So It is a challenge, but you know, the good thing is they're investing again at a local level throughout the globe because they see that is crucial.
Yeah, and we had Phil Reynolds write in actually, Jen. He said, I'm from Canada as well. That came in right when you were speaking earlier. I know, right? Yeah, so we're kind of out of time, but I put my email up there for everybody that's on here, and I'm going to make, again, like I said, this is going to be made available through the OMX site, and I will be emailing it out to everybody that registered and everybody that attended. So if you do have additional questions that you would like me to ask to Jennifer or Lewis, please email them to me. I will get the answers from them, and then I will send out an email probably on Monday with a link to this slideshow, and then with any additional answers that you may want. And that's it for now. Jen, Lewis, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I'm good. Just thanks, Haley, for including me in the webinar.
And thank you so much for coming and helping us out. And Lewis, thank you as well. I really appreciate it, guys. You've been wonderful today.
Yeah, thanks for including me also.
Okay, well, that's it for now. Everyone have a great weekend. For those who are coming to the OMX holiday party, we have lots of food and wine here, so we're looking forward to having you. See you guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.